Yeah, now I don't know. I don't remember how to start. Do we have a thing? You're just waiting on me. You're just waiting to see what I was going to say. How are you?
I don't know if I'm waiting. I'm good, man. It's hot. Is it hot up there?
It's man. It was. Oh, gosh. So this is our first day back at the homestead after 2 weeks on the East Coast, and so our time zones are all messed up. We got in late last night, so we were all up at 5 o'clock this morning, and from 5 until about 3 minutes ago, it was not hot, and all of a sudden I'm smoking. I just in my room, it's like an oven.
It can't be that hot up there.
It's hot. It's at 102.
I'm gonna check.
I think it's 102.
Not.
I need to tell you about my favorite app.
Let's hear it.
Of the thing. Have you heard of Dark Skies?
Have I? I don't know.
Ooh, what is
Dark Skies?
What is that?
Like, isn't that? No, I'm thinking Dark Skies. That's a video game. No, Dark Skies. I don't think so.
So fun. All right, so it's a weather app. It's just a weather. That's all it does.
Okay.
And what it does for you is it tells you, you're going to laugh at me and you're going to call it dumb, but I assure you it is less than dumb. All it does is it tells you, is it raining right now? And is it going to be raining in the next hour?
Yeah, that does sound dumb.
No. Stay with me. Because not only does it tell you, because of course, I mean, is it raining right now? That's dumb. You could look up. Look up. Please don't get an app to look up. But what it tells you, more importantly than looking up, is how long it is going to be raining and at what level of sort of rain density. And it has this beautiful little graph that says, is it raining lightly? Is it raining sort of moderately? And is it raining heavily? And how much longer is it going to be raining? So I thought this thing is so dumb because in Portland for the last, before we left, I got the app and for like a week it didn't rain. It was just gloomy and sad, but it didn't rain. And so it never, gave me anything. So we went to New York and suddenly it starts raining a little bit. And I think, Dark Skies. I can check out Dark Skies. This is fantastic. I'm going to open Dark Skies. You know what Dark Skies said? Go ahead, ask.
No, I don't.
It said, it's raining right now, and it will be raining for the next 4 minutes. And you know what happened in 4 minutes? It stopped raining, Dave.
The gods part of the skies.
It stopped raining. And so the week, we had some on and off rain for a week, and every time it started to rain at all, Dark Skies was right on. And so if you look up and you think, okay, we're going to go out for a picnic, we're going to go for a walk. And the skies look even, the skies don't even have to hint at rain. You open up Dark Skies, it says, you know what? It's not raining right now, but in 28 minutes, you're going to want to run for cover. It was spot on every single time. It's like, it is a little window into the future.
How much does this app cost?
It's like $2. It's worth every penny. It was great.
I can see this being really cool in Portland, but really useless in Las Vegas.
No, I can.
Or Phoenix or something,
I agree with that. And and it's beautiful. And on the iPad app is actually, it's a universal app, thank goodness, because I get really sick of being double timed for apps. And so you open it up on the iPad, it shows this beautiful radar view so that you can you scroll back and forth over the next hour, and it tells you, it tells you, it's going to be raining in 28 minutes, but you can see as you scroll through this radar view exactly where the storm is in relation to your GPS location right now. Beautifully done. Right now I'm looking at mine, it says, and it actually has this thing, it says, clear skies are boring. Tap here to view a storm in Durant, Mississippi. So
interesting.
Right now, there's no rain in the next, it's 72 degrees in the next hour, no rain. And then you can look at the full day and it gives you sort of the next 3 hours, this afternoon, this evening, and overnight. I got no rain. It's going to be beautiful here.
Well,
you got to get this app. It's fantastic.
I'll tell you what would be awesome would be if they have more of like a snow application for this. I don't know. How does that translate to snow?
You're right. That would be great. That'd be useful for you.
Yeah. That'd be nice to know. Well,
Man,
and
I
bet it'd be
there's
tough
probably...
too, because, the places you want to know where it's snowing are not places that are heavily monitored.
Well, that's the truth.
Necessarily, I guess. I don't know.
Well, I don't know. There's probably some sort of a ski prep app.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
That's interesting. No, I'm on their website, and that does look like a beautiful iPad interface.
It is beautiful. They did a great job on it. It's very, you know what I like about it? It's very simple. It's very simple.
Well, it is interesting, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, That's it.
It
and
answers,
I'll tell
you know,
so
it's funny because it
Boise,
answers.
We've had these, I mean, super hot. Like we hit 108 degrees 3 days ago.
Yeah.
It's been about 100 as for the high for the last couple of days. But there have been these, I mean, I don't know what it is about the weather prediction here. It's not so good, but there've been, these sort of afternoon storms that blow through. We actually had a little rain this morning, a little rain tonight. It seems really uncharacteristic to me for a sort of a high desert location, but so it's kind of, like you would think. I would think, well, I look at the forecast. It says it's going to be sunny and 100 degrees today. But at some point today, it very well could rain.
Yeah.
And wouldn't I like to know?
That's right. You would like to know that. You would like to know.
That's interesting.
When that happens.
Hey, so I'm all set up for the Music Fest Northwest. So
fantastic. When
we
is
need
it?
to do a
When is
remote
it?
podcast when I'm up there.
When is it happening?
It's the first week of September.
Oh, good. All right. We've got some time. So
Yeah,
we'll definitely do a show. We'll call Megan. We'll have her come be a part of it.
Megan show. Yeah, we could.
Yeah.
We'll.
She probably doesn't even remember the name of the show.
It's interesting things.
Let me try and think of some things that I wanted to talk. Do you have anything you were dying to talk about? It's been 2 weeks. You totally ditched me for 2 weeks. I feel like we should talk about your voicemail setup because
Let's not.
Well, okay.
But I don't. Because it's going to be a lot of I know.
No, I know. Yeah.
But I'm going to make a note. Though.
I'm not good with voicemail either.
Google Voice setup.
I hate
needs
voicemail.
to happen. So yeah,
absolutely
okay.
hate voicemail. Got it done. All right. No, I do hate voicemail. So I'm in the same boat. When you call me, not just you, anybody, you call me, it takes a while to get back. Email is usually pretty good. I'm much faster on things like text and Twitter.
Yeah, I need to do some new setup things. So that just so you know, it's September 5th through the 9th. That's I think people ought to have that on the calendar. I think people all over ought to have that on the calendar.
Yeah. Okay.
So that's why I'm bringing that up.
That's good.
But anyway, yeah, we'll set a schedule for that.
Do you have any particular sort of marketing topics you'd like to talk about on the marketing?
No,
show
I was interested with I guess they're close on the settlement with Google and who are they settling with? Is it the FTC?
Yeah, no, that's a big one, right? It's like 22.5 million.
Yeah,
FTC
I mean, does that
fine.
seem big? That's 4 hours worth of revenue or profit. I don't know.
Yeah, I know it's a big one if you're the FTC.
Biggest ever if you're FTC. Yeah, but if you're Google,
Google,
right? But
it's one of those things. You get a company like Google who's I'm going to call it a motto. It's not even a mission. It seems like anymore. It's been so sort of vilified. But their mission is don't be evil, and here they're getting the largest fine the FTC has ever levied against a corporation for doing something that was really, they can spin it any way they want. What the problem was? Do you even remember what the problem was?
I do, and
share the problem.
Discovered by a Stanford grad student or something.
Yeah, I believe so. This was that they circumvented the Safari web browser's settings, so that even though Safari
did something they explicitly said they would not do.
Yeah, and that users had selected an option that says I don't want to see, to be tracked in this way to allow advertising in on the web browser, and Google reverse engineered that option so that user settings didn't matter in this case, and so that they were allowed to do what they needed to do anyway, to serve ads in the favor of ads. And Google's spin on it was I don't know, kind of half-assed, and so the FTC has levied this fine to say, you know what, you can't do this. If a company has this option and people click this option, and then you can't do this. That's not.
Well, I would think the negative PR would have a worse impact than whatever fine is levied, but I would think. But
do
I guess
you
we'll
really
have to wait
think?
and see.
I mean, this is a. I mean, it's. I wonder if PR has an impact at all. Right. I mean, this was a thing that happened already. The fine is sort of
Well, and I don't mean the negative PR about like today. That there's a fine today, and gosh, doesn't that make them look bad? I mean just the fact that. That somebody discovered them doing something that, again, literally was something they, I mean, the fine is very specifically, wow, you weren't supposed to do this. You said you weren't doing this, and you did this. I don't know. I don't know. It doesn't change my use of Google, I guess. So
that's that's totally
how does it
issue,
matter,
right? So I mean, you look at the the real issue is, I mean, they did this on Safari, and Safari, where it matters is really iOS, because of iOS's dominance in the web space. But really, you look at browser stats, and Chrome is still, Chrome, which is, has its own sort of respect for ad tracking. And that's really, I think, what their justification was. We were doing this to make it line up with the other standards employed by across browsers in terms of reverence to ad tracking. And Chrome is I believe Chrome is now widely considered the most popular browser on the web.
Yeah, I think by at least a little bit it is. Yeah.
And so, how bad can this $22 million fine be?
Right. So I do have.
I love that you said it's 4 hours of revenue. That puts it in really stark perspective.
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah.
I have this one question for you. I've been thinking about, though. I wonder, from your perspective, how important you think it is to have your own sort of elevator speech about either yourself or your company. A small sort of 20-second, presentation of you.
Well, I think it's important.
Do you feel like you have yours honed?
No. Yeah. No,
I know that
I do.
I don't. And I know that I'm kind of evolving what I'm doing, and I haven't really put together something that quickly sort of encapsulates a description of, what I do for money to somebody in a way that I think is compelling. So,
well, I don't know if I do. I don't know if I do to the point where I have put a lot of thought into it, and I've tested a lot of words and language, and in terms of I don't know if I have an elevator speech, but I've got a one-liner that I have kind of crafted over the years, and so when people ask, I typically say, I'm a storyteller. I help organizations understand their story and then share it effectively through words and images online.
And I don't know how you could improve upon that. I don't know that would ever need to change.
Well, that's very kind of you.
I know. In fact, I know that for you, that storyteller term really helped crystallize your thinking about, what it is you wanted to do and how you wanted to present yourself. And you can sort of, you can call those other things variables if you want, I guess. I mean, you're just sort of describing media, different media that is an approach to storytelling. And I think that's pretty perfectly, succinct.
Well, it also lets me be kind of a flibbertigibbet, I mean, it gives me the opportunity to have choice every morning about what kinds of projects I'm going to work on. And that's nice because of my, severe ADHD, my inability to focus on any one thing.
I really like that. I mean, I like having something powerful to present when you meet somebody new, or your conversation eventually turns to, and I would think even, and this, I mean, for you and I think it's more important because, we sort of are our business. We are our, we're our own company and, or whatever. And so it's kind of important, I think, to keep that, keep it compelling and able to use and pull out at any time. But I would think even if you were an employee for a large organization, you might want to spend some time, I mean, it's sort of the most loaded and loathed question, what do you do? But if your answer is your job title,
right. I'm a manager.
Right. I manage some people.
I'm in
operations.
Yeah. I'm in operations. You're never quite sure what that means.
So I don't know. I mean,
you just don't have one right now is what you're saying.
Yeah. I really need to. Last night, I was having a conversation. I thought, wow, I am really lacking here. I've got to put some time into this, this statement.
Well, this is a cobbler's kids thing too. I mean, I run into this all the time, and I know I'm not alone in terms of you. That the the real issue is here. We do all day. You're working with clients, and you're thinking on in terms of the client's language. How often do you really sit down and do yourself that same justice?
Yes.
Rarely.
Well, and here's what else made it jump out at me. So here's a quick one. This is my friend Dave Olson, and I just looked at his little description of himself on Twitter. VP Community at Hootsuite Social Media Dashboard. I enjoy hot springs, crafting, compelling content, politeness, and nuance.
See, I enjoy a lot of those things. Not as much crafting.
Well, no, I said it's my horrible man vision. It's crafting compelling content. That's one.
Oh,
it's crafting compelling content.
I enjoy crafting
after craft
and compelling content.
Right. That's why it's important to have these statements succinct. You throw in something like knitting, for instance.
Right.
I don't know.
Suturing. That's fantastic. No, it's good. And Dave is another one of those guys that is all over the place. And yet, what his right up there is gives him a lot of opportunity to do a lot of different things. And yet it does paint a picture of who he is.
And it paints a picture of confidence. Yeah. And so, and I know, obviously I've known Dave forever, know a lot about him, and as well that yes, he is all over the place. He does a lot of different things. His interests are wide. He's kind of, always sort of engaged in something. But and this sort of does that. This sort of says like, well, in addition to here's my day job, and I craft compelling content. Well, that describes a lot of things because he does a lot of different blogging and podcasting and
right.
writing and artistic writing and professional writing and all of that. But, then you throw out politeness and nuance, and well, why not be able to say something like that and say that here it is. That's my and this isn't entirely his professional description, but, but it's a little statement. It's a little way to introduce yourself.
That introduces himself in a way where there is some personality too, personality is important. And I think that gets to, the shift in presentation online and this sort of convergence of digital personalities that I don't think a lot of, particularly professionals, have kind of wrapped their hands around. There's still this separation of church and state where,
professional here and personal here.
Yeah. Maybe I use, my professional, I have two profiles, and one is professional and one is my personal, and I manage by login kind of what people are seeing at any given time. And I think that introduces a layer of complexity that is not sustainable in any sufficient way. And, I just taught this class, right, in Chautauqua, and it was called Building Your Brand Online. And one of the discussions we had, I think is really valuable, which is this discussion about the intention of the applications that we're using online. Take Facebook, for example, right? Facebook, at its very core, is designed to share, right? It's designed, its entire ecosystem is about sharing and educating other people about your life and the things that you are interested in. It is not designed to consume necessarily. It doesn't work with a one-sided kind of a sharing model. So it doesn't work as well to be the guy who logs in and just watches somebody else's stream. Because it breaks. I mean, the model breaks. If you have enough people who aren't sharing, who aren't, embracing Facebook as it was designed to be embraced, the model breaks.
Right.
Right. And so if you my position has always been, if you're that person, Facebook's not a good tool for you. And you should probably not have an account there. Just call it what it is and be done. Move on. LinkedIn is, it was originally designed as a tool for professionals to connect opportunities, right? Mm-hmm. It's a job tool, really. I mean, that's what it is. At its very core, it's an opportunity connection tool for professionals. And if you're going to LinkedIn to share photos of your kittens, not the right tool.
Mm-hmm.
It's just not the right tool. So call it what it is and post those elsewhere. And so I think, there's this sort of nature of what level of kind of integration of your digital personality are you willing to accept? I tend to go all in, although I don't have a LinkedIn account anymore. I deleted it.
Did you really?
Yeah.
How come?
Wasted time. What I found?
Were
I
you
didn't
spending
post
time on it?
No, I was spending no time on it, and that was the problem. And I was one of those people. I didn't have a need. The opportunities that I get, I haven't gotten any opportunity from LinkedIn explicitly, right? I've never had a connection that led to a sort of revenue generating opportunity for me. And largely because I haven't promoted myself that way on LinkedIn. I take no part in no groups, none of the sort of the more sort of robust promotion opportunities
the more
on LinkedIn.
Sort of the proactive involvement with LinkedIn.
I've never done that. And the only thing that I had done was pipe all of my other social sites back through LinkedIn, through the LinkedIn profile page, which makes it, sort of look busy at first glance. But if you're friends with me on Facebook or Twitter, you would notice that I am, I'm already there. And if you're friends with me there, you already know the old news, pictures and photos and things are already there. And, I just didn't have any sort of robust network on LinkedIn. I had a lot of connections. But none of them were, terribly rich connections. And so when they had there were two things that sort of pushed me over. First of all, they Twitter and LinkedIn parted ways. So, from now on, you can't, there's no Twitter stream coming into LinkedIn. So things on my page would get pretty quiet because, that's where new content was coming from. And then they had that stupid password thing.
Right.
And now that is a key learning for LinkedIn, to get exploited at that level. And I have 100% confidence that they fix it and it is resolved, and passwords are, now going to be in a much more sort of secure fashion. I'm not one of those people that holds it against LinkedIn, but that was a trigger point for me to recognize, gosh, you know what? I totally don't use it. I'm just done.
So you deleted not long ago.
No. It was just a couple weeks ago. Just when it happened.
Okay.
Yeah. No, I just was done. And so that was that. It was more just kind of consolidation and realizing that I didn't want to be the guy that I'm teaching people not to be. Like, the tool was not a good fit for me, so I needed to leave the tool. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I've looked at LinkedIn lately because I live in a new community, and it's an easy place, I think, to connect with people that you're maybe not planning on long-term, close association with, or you know what I mean. You're sort of trying to navigate your way through a new business community or something like that, and you don't want to have to get personal. And I don't know that I disagree with anything you're saying. I'm just saying that I've kind of been looking at it, and using it a little bit lately to at least make some of those very superficial connections that I can at least maybe, if I'm not collecting a phone number, but I've met somebody at a function of some kind. Perhaps I can then have the ability to quickly email them through LinkedIn, where instead of just a random email, it's through something that says we're already connected somehow or something like that. Anyway, so I'm still kind of leaning on it, but I don't feel like it's necessarily, fulfilling anything of value, I guess, measurable value at this point. But I have kind of held on to it and used it more in the last month or so than I have in the last year.
Yeah. That says a lot, that there's no, what did you say? You used, I think, important words. That you're hanging on it, but there's no...
Was I cutting out?
No. I just have already forgotten.
Yeah, me too.
Seconds later. But that's the...
So I've kind of been using it, but no, you're right. And yeah, if you're kind of... I mean, I like this. I want to hear more about this class that you taught. You had a phrase you used about... the purpose, was it, or the
intention,
the function?
intention,
Yeah.
intention.
So talk about that some more.
Well, all of these sort of social tools, and I think our brands function around either a singular or a sort of a compressed kind of set of intentions, and that means there's a place at which we are most comfortable in what we do, and we are most sort of expert at what we do, and all of these social media tools have that sort of intention, and when they get out of hand, when they start having trouble is when they forget what their intention is and what their sort of core users are, really count on this tool to become. Twitter, I think, is a great example. When you look at what Twitter's sort of early intention was, is kind of brief sort of connectivity for technically minded individuals. It allowed this sort of very simple messaging system to emerge, on the backs of core users, and all of the best kind of functions of Twitter came as a result of users, hashtags and @ replies and all these wonderful third-party Twitter applications to interface with the service came as a result of all of kind of core users leveraging this very simple message platform that Twitter provided. And now Twitter realizes as a company that they need to make some money, and then they start sort of advertising, and now that intention has trifurcated and split again, and now they're, as an advertising platform, they need to start reining in some of the some of the tools that have been created, and now their intention is split again because they are hurting the developer network and its core, these sort of core users who helped define the service early on are now suffering as a result of Twitter reining in some of their API use and starting to tell developers not to develop third-party applications, that if you're going to view Twitter, you have to view it through our user. And so that the intention of Twitter is changing, and I think people are starting to be confused as to what it is and how we're supposed to use it, because we had one idea and now we've kind of lost the idea. Facebook is its original intention to connect. To connect friends at a more intimate level is, it became something different than that. And I think, they do all right at evolving intentions and evolving sort of what their core purpose is. And, they've had some, they've had challenges over the years because of how they slam changes on their users and are accused of kind of violating their users' trust. And I think that's probably true. But once you accept the fact that, Twitter is what it, or Facebook is what it is, and you get over, you get over the sort of feeling of being violated, then you realize Facebook either works for you or it doesn't. And you should move on and fit, kind of make it fit you. And so that's kind of the nut of it, and because there's so much fear, I think, particularly in advertising. And this is the crux of building your brand. This sort of class that I teach, which is that from a business perspective, there is this kind of I think false acceptance of an assumption that you have to be everywhere. You have to be on all of these tools if you're a business, if you're a new brand, because you have to have access to all of these all these people online. And I don't believe that. I really fundamentally don't believe that anymore. That used to be a big part of my pitch is getting people online everywhere. I don't believe that anymore. I think there's much more nuance to it.
I'm looking up the title of this book here. Okay, I think I'm pretty close. No, that's not the title. The Startup of You, maybe that was it. I'm thinking, so this class was about building your brand, which actually very much is I should have been in your class, Pete. I'm asking this question to start off here with a 20-second statement about yourself, or whatever, an elevator speech, and you've just taught this great class on building your brand. I just picked up a book, and is it The Startup of You? I don't know if that's the one it is. I think it is The Startup of You. Have you read that one?
No.
Okay, it's the LinkedIn co-founder Reid Hoffman, I think, and I don't know if it has any
I've heard
worth.
of it.
I'm just
Right.
wondering if there were any books that you think kind of help either maybe prepared you to teach that class, or that you think have some value along the lines of this, building your own brand concept.
No, I didn't really kind of approach it that way from a sort of a brand, because this was an online, this was really specifically what are the tools that you need to be thinking about, and what is the philosophy that you need to be thinking about when you're building your brand, whether you're kind of an artist or I had artists, authors, I had 10 people in the class, and I had artists, authors, a couple of attorneys. I had a woodworker, a guy who's an expert sort of wood sculptor, beautiful work, Dan Grantham, which you'll be seeing more of as he gets his website. If you're into wood, Dan Grantham, man, he's one to watch. Fantastic talent. And so, I have these folks on. They're all kind of coming at it from different stages, but they, they're all sort of struggling to wrap their heads around what is it that we need to focus on, and what is step one. I don't know. I maybe I threw up a Tumblr site, maybe I'm on Facebook, whatever, but I can't figure out how to put it all together. And so I tend to approach it more from a content strategy perspective. And so I think there is one book that I recommend sort of starting with, which is from a book apart, which is the where is it? It's the content strategy one. Hang on. Yeah, the elements. Can you hear me?
I can.
I need to be close
Barely.
to the microphone. So I had to walk across the room.
I can hear you.
This is Aaron Kassane's book, The Elements of Content Strategy. It's number 3 in the Book Apart series. And I really like this. It's like 70 pages. It's nothing. But what it is it reminds you, it allows you to think not about services, because I think you get lost in services like, I got to be on Facebook, I got to be on Twitter, I got to be on Google+, but more, here is what I do, here is what I produce, whether it's pictures or words or video, or here are the stories that I need to tell. Now, which platforms are most appropriate for those stories? Maybe, just maybe, what I do requires no use of Twitter at all, because the story isn't appropriate for Twitter. The elements, the content that I'm creating is not appropriate. And so I really like that perspective. And I think that's, that's given me more of a framework for communicating strategy, online strategy than I have kind of thought about in the past. So I start with that book, The Elements of Content Strategy. I didn't recommend the book in the course that I teach because, we started a little bit more basic than that, but that provides a lot of the foundation. I think once you have an idea of what your story is, thinking about the kinds of content you create to promote that story, beginning there, I think is a better approach from how I talk about this stuff.
Well, and here's something, I think about, I think about, for instance, your phrase, your storytelling, I'm a storyteller, or I tell people stories or whatever. And Dave's phrase, he creates compelling content. Well, you and Dave happen to be fantastic writers. You are great with language. Mm-hmm. And I think a lot of people think, okay, so I need a content strategy. I need to sort of communicate, my talents, my abilities, or my, career, my profession, my brand. And obviously language is, if you don't have the ability to use language to do that, then you're sort of hogtied. But by the same token, I think, you talked about this guy in your course who was a woodworker. Well, I'm just going to guess, and even if I'm not right here, let's assume that he's not great at using language to really sell his brand. So when we talk about content strategy, perhaps for him, it's he creates beautiful things. So maybe something that's visual is the best way for him to express himself online, his content strategy probably should be a visual one, right?
Yeah. To your point specifically about words and, using them, I tend to be fairly black and white on this. I mean, if you really believe you can't write, learn to write, because the fundamental DNA of the web is words. And if you want to enter this world, you have to be able to write. And I feel pretty strongly about that you just have to figure it out. Now, because, think about it. Even if you're making videos or making educational content, it all starts with words that have to be strong enough and powerful enough to get somebody to click play, or images that get somebody to click on a slideshow. Something you have to be able to write to get people to take action on your content, to share your content, to write a call to action. So it is DNA of the web. And if you really genuinely can't write, take a class, learn to write, or just be ready for the fact that you're going to have to hire somebody to write for you. And every word needs to be proofed and edited.
I was going to say that's a lot easier said than done. I have hired copywriters in the past for certain things. And, it's great when people have an amazing talent and can just, spew things out. But yeah, like you said, you've got to proofread, you've got to edit, and then, did they really understand what you were trying to say? And did they, I think you're right. I think it's easier to learn to do it yourself better than to really rely on others to do it for you.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. But there are, because you know your story better than anyone else. I mean, unless you have somebody on your team who is totally invested and buys in and knows how to write, it's your story to tell. There is a book that I would recommend, for folks who are interested in writing that works. It's called Writing That Works, and it's by
for me you were breaking up there. Will you say that one more time?
I'll say it again. The book that I recommend is Writing That Works. It's the 3rd edition by Kenneth Roman and Joel Raphaelson. This is a fantastic book that helps kind of get over the humps of fear of writing powerful words. And I think your step 1 is to read this book, and step 2 is to read it again, and then write some. And start figuring out kind of what your story is. You'll get tips out of this book that will absolutely help you.
Well, that's cool. Because I was going to ask, I think I've thought about, for people who want to become better at public speaking, there's Toastmasters, and that's sort of this, kind of like AA or whatever. It's in every community, and, there's always a meeting. Is there something like that for writing?
Oh, not one that I attend.
Right.
I don't. But okay. I don't.
Well,
know
no, but
that,
this is good. Writing that works.
Writing that works, and then the elements of content strategy. I think those are the two that I start with. One is how to write. 2 is how to use content. Now, let's go back to my man Dan, and our experience in class. You are absolutely right that his ends up being a much more visual experience, and the stuff that he creates to promote it is far less powerful for him to write a page on his website that describes his woodwork than to show a picture of it or a video of it. So where we ended up with Dan is looking at, first of all, his website. And I have this metaphor that is, looking at kind of your online brand as a solar system, and your sun, inside that solar system is your website, and that deserves all the focus early on. If you have a Facebook page and a Google Plus page and a Twitter account, but your website sucks, put all the rest on hiatus and go back to that website, because, the website is all yours. It is 100% your content, your words. You are not, at the mercy of some third party's terms of service changes. You own what you create on your website, and then you drive other people to it. And so I think Dan's case, he had a really terrible website. He had a good slideshow of some old stuff that he could not control. He couldn't log in and update those pages. He couldn't log in and upload new photos. Now, once we kind of walked through the shortcomings of his website, we talked about kind of the stuff he enjoys doing the most, which is talking about his work as he's doing it. So, why not start looking at something like using Google Hangout on air to do 10-minute education pieces that illustrate how he executes some woodworking concept, or how he uses some tool to great and novel effect that sort of makes a connection between his ability to use a tool and the work that he creates, and makes that story more powerful. Because when you think about it, particularly in his case, when you're buying art, if I have I've got a couple of wood pieces on my on my table here, and the first thing that somebody says when they walk in and they see these little sculptures is, "Gosh, that's really cool." And the first thing I say is, "Let me tell you why it's cool, because the guy who made it, story, 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 story," or "My grandmother brought this back from Indonesia, story, 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 story." So if you, as an artist, if you give people more story about the pieces that they're creating, you're giving people more of a reason, an intimate relationship with the piece and with your work. And I think that makes it more valuable and worth more to pay for. When they see something that's really artistic.
You are so right about that, and that's some really fabulous insight for that guy. And I can tell you from experience, I have a very close friend who has sold art for many years, and I've watched him sell art and talk to customers, and now he's doing a lot of his own art. And there's no question that that's the case. You're sort of walking around an art gallery, and people are, say they're on vacation, a ski vacation, and you're trying to keep them interested. You're trying to not throw too many judgments out,
right,
that might interfere with their judgment, I guess, on the work. So that's kind of what your best tool is to talk about the background or the artist or that particular location of the painting, that was used, or some backstory, and it changes everything if you can do that. And so this is very interesting, that if an artist can kind of, instead of relying on a gallery salesperson, to hopefully have some information about your story, but to be able to sort of feed, without needing to write a book or a biography, but just,
right,
to show some examples of you at work, or to create more of a backstory for the work that you're doing, or you as an artist. That's perfect. It's fantastic.
Yeah. And that gets, because I could sort of hear your leading question, which was, what if you're an attorney? It's great for an artist, and that's really true. But that's why it's so important to look at this, in my perspective, from a content strategy perspective, which is, obviously Google Plus for learning how to woodwork is not necessarily the right tool for an attorney, because that story is going to be different. If you're a construction attorney, maybe there's a different thing you're going to need to educate on. I've got some clients who a law firm that specializes in construction fraud. Well, maybe there's another way to educate the public on the things you need to look for, and when you're preparing to litigate for construction fraud, or before you buy an office building, what are the things you need to know from a legal perspective? How can you kind of tell your story? And the real purpose, your intention behind your storytelling, is to build your credibility as a thought leader. Right? That you have a place in this economy, that says you have experience enough, that you've done enough work, that you are qualified to support potential clients in their work. It's hard to say that there is a sort of protracted kind of or this prescription for how to do this, and how to build your brand online, and that if you follow steps 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, you're going to be there, because I don't think that's true. I think, and particularly if you're approaching this from a content strategy perspective, it's one of those things that's highly, highly custom, and you have to really know what your intention is for your business and what your story is.
Well,
before you go down that path.
And I think, you absolutely, I think what you're saying is very illuminating, and I'm enjoying this. I really do wish I would have been in your class. So we got to do that sometime, but you're going to have another one, have one in Portland, I'll come up. But,
yeah, right.
the starting point of saying, well, what is it I'm trying to communicate? What's right for, let's say, the industry, or for me as a person, and how to, what avenue, I guess, what media tool or whatever, what's the best match, for expressing or sharing or selling. But I think sort of, at a certain level, everything that you're saying leads us to differentiation.
Right.
So, we want to be compelling. We want to be interesting. We want to be, share our strengths and share it the right way in the right place. But then at a certain point, and this is just all, marketing 101, that term differentiation, but that has to be brought into it.
Yeah. I that's pretty critically important. And I think that's the benefit of this approach, this sort of philosophical approach to thinking about your brand, which is, if you approach it from, first and foremost, what is the intention of your business, and what are the kinds of things that you need to do to illustrate your business to people? What are the elements of content that you can share with people to demonstrate your business and your position as a thought leader in your field? You cannot help but differentiate your business, because you are coming at it from really a very pure place. And I think marketers who think about, we have to be on Google Plus because other big brands are on Google Plus, are not in fact getting it. I'll just talk briefly about Chautauqua, which I think is a good example of this. Chautauqua is, ciweb.org. If you visit ciweb.org, you get an idea of what Chautauqua is. It's a kind of the ultimate gated community for intellectuals. It's in New York. There's a 9-week season every year, and people usually visit for a week at a time. Each week of the 9 weeks is based on a certain intellectual theme. And so the weeks we were there, the first week was Roger Rosenblatt and friends on writing. And Roger Rosenblatt, if you haven't read any of his stuff, he's a fantastic writer, and he's written some 20 books, and he gets on stage with his dearest friends. And so his friends, Norman Lear, day one. God, I have to review the schedule. He sits and has this conversation on the craft of writing every day with other writers and luminaries. And so, you get in this outdoor amphitheater, and sort of every day at 10:45, you get this lecture that is on this theme. And the rest of the lectures throughout the day, whether they're sort of more philosophical, religious, practical, they all are related around this theme. The next week was Jim Lehrer and friends. Jim Lehrer, the retired anchor of NewsHour with McNeil Lehrer. His theme, he would get up on stage and talk with political professionals on what you need to know about the election this year. Absolutely transformational conversations happen on this stage, and afterward, you are this 6,000 person amphitheater, outdoor amphitheater. They take questions, and so you write your questions down and you get up there. So, all right, so this place is like you have to think of it in like TED, right? Like the TED conference, and these talks that TED puts out. They're absolutely transformational, by and large, fantastic luminaries in their field sharing their insights, and TED gives it away for free. Well, Chautauqua is really struggling with communicating who they are and what Chautauqua is, because that experience of kind of being on the lake and going to this place and giving yourself up to these discussions for themes for this 9-week season is challenging to communicate. And they have been. This is the point. All that was background. Over the sort of last era of modern marketing, kind of the last 25 years, since Chautauqua was founded in 1874, this last cycle of marketing has very much been, let's talk about what Chautauqua is from a consumer perspective. So, what can consumers expect, and how can what is the Chautauqua experience for you, person who bought a ticket? Well, it was better than Cats. I laughed, I cried. I want to see it again and again. So you're talking about the people who consume it. It is not necessarily taking an active role in sharing the wisdom that is created at Chautauqua. And I found myself this year getting really mad because they have transitioned that same consumer vision of marketing to social media. And so they would set up these porch sessions that they'd advertise saying, come share your Chautauqua story. And they'd have these doofus videos of people saying, well, I love Chautauqua because there are cats that meow and there are no cars and it's really great. But it's nothing that I care about, right? As somebody who wants to learn what Chautauqua is, that tells me what you think about your porch. That doesn't tell me what the institution is creating. Why not actually offer the Q&A sessions in bite-sized videos? Why not offer those online? And why not, do Twitter Q&A interviews with the speakers after the session? Why not, find some way to integrate the content that is being created into the marketing effort? Because that's the story. That's the story of this organization, Chautauqua. The story is in the wisdom that is created on these stages across this compound, not what happens on the porches of the houses in this community. And I think that's really missing. And it's missing what we were talking about earlier, that intention. It's an organization that does not yet understand its intention, does not yet understand kind of where its solar system is, and doesn't yet quite have a handle on what it wants to share. Part of the complication is they also make money off of what they share, and you can buy subscriptions to the full lectures, that happen on the stages, so you can view them online, and that has become a significant revenue draw for people who are old Chautauquans. But there is a kind of mix here that I think they're missing. And they, so I think they're getting a handle on it, but it's an example of, what's your story? What is the story you're trying to tell? And where is the greatest value in building that message? What's going to actually make people want to go visit in person? I'm sorry, that was a rant.
No, but obviously it's, I was just browsing their website, and the things I was looking for, I found very difficult to find. I mean, I've never been. I think their website gives sort of, if you're on the inside, you're planning a trip there, or you're in the know, you know what it's about. I couldn't find anything that gave me a real sense of, other than the names that jump out, like you say, Jim Lair and Norman Lear and but the problem, this Rosenblatt, and names that are going to really jump out at people, but I can't get a real sense of.
This is the real challenge of Chautauqua, which is the only way you can really get to know it is by being introduced to it by somebody who has been there in the past. And they've sort of hung their hats on that, but now that is not a sustainable growth model for them because, it's expensive to make a trip across the country to end up in Chautauqua, around the world, that people come from around the world. It's very difficult and expensive to make a commitment like that. And they need to find a way to tell this story. I think you hit it. Like, the website's a little bit confusing, and it doesn't necessarily communicate what it is that this place is,
Well, and does. I'll tell you, and I still don't know the whole, business background on this or what the future holds. But I've been to the Coachella Music Festival before, and it's a great experience and whatever, But I got kids now, and it's not top of the list to take the family to the Coachella Music Festival right now. But this year, man, they had these they created this YouTube channel where you could watch at any given time in the evenings, and they had them all scheduled from sort of 5 p.m. to midnight or something like that. I mean, I was there, I had my big screen TV. I was feeding it up through, off of my iPad through AirPlay and going back and forth between these stages. And I was compelled. And so maybe I am more inclined to want to go next year, or maybe I would be willing to pay next time around if they say, well, you can have access to the, this feed, because these are real live events. This wasn't like, you're watching, like a concert on PBS where they've got this very polished, produced, edited, and it's 9 months after the performance, we're selling this DVD or whatever. This was as it's happening, and the camera angles were great. The production was great. Mistakes were happening. Delays were happening. Anyway, it was great. It really brought me in. It made me feel connected, not just, to the festival, because the festival isn't, where I have an allegiance, but to these fantastic bands, It was great. It was really, I just thought, gosh, that's not necessarily novel, I suppose, to like, okay, here's a live feed on YouTube of a concert. But for me, it felt like, wow, this kind of changes things, and it makes me feel, it pulls me in, it makes me feel connected, whatever. So you're talking about some other ways that people can be connected or interact with or get involved with, through the use of Twitter or other things, that some of them might be live. Maybe some of them are throughout the year, that it makes it more than just a 9-week affair,
Well, that's the real issue is engagement, right? It's if you know your story that well, then you feel comfortable when it is appropriate to invite your audience into the conversation and when it is not, and when it becomes a revenue generating opportunity, and you have to know that. And I think organizations like Coachella, which tend to be more sort of singularly focused on music, have an easier time kind of figuring out what that story is and what's appropriate to share and what's not than maybe Chautauqua or South by Southwest, that ends up having a much broader kind of realm of influence.
Well,
so it's hard. It doesn't make it easy.
I think when you have a sold out event and then you then have it reach out beyond the ticket holders and the people who are in attendance, you're not going to lose anything. I think you have only to gain, not always, but if you're having trouble selling tickets, and then it's the same sort of thing with, I guess, pay-per-view sports or, blackout zones for NBA games. But although I'm not sure the logic is always there and always right on those kinds of decisions, I think, I guess you have to test it. I mean, you're right. You'd like to know, you'd like to have a strategy that says, we're going to pull the audience in, or we're going to reach beyond our borders or our attendees. And will that decrease or increase revenue? So, you obviously want your best educated guess there, but I also think you kind of have to test, and I think you have to be willing to take some risks to find those things out.
Absolutely. Well,
interesting example.
I'm glad we figured that
out. All
right. We totally didn't talk about the one thing I wanted to talk about, which was Apple and this EPEAT thing. Did you hear about that?
You're breaking up for me. I'm sorry.
Gosh darn it.
Apple and EPEAT?
EPEAT.
Because no, I don't. Never heard of it.
EPEAT is the Environmental Protection Standard kind of stamp that goes on the boxes. And this is maybe we talk about this next week. I mean, the whole thing was that Apple has removed themselves from this EPEAT standard, meaning they're because they've said pretty much what EPEAT covers is that it's easy to disassemble the products that you manufacture so that they can be properly recycled. And Apple had them remove some 250 products, even products that were fully certified, and said, we're not going to do it. Late last month, Apple told the nonprofit EPEAT group that the company would no longer submit its products for green certification from EPEAT, and that it was pulling its currently certified products from the group's registry. That the report says its design direction is no longer in line with the program's requirements.
That sounds like a Steve Jobs move.
It really does.
He wasn't with us anymore.
Well, it's fascinating because I'm thinking about this because I have the new MacBook Air, the 11-inch, and I have fallen in absolute love with it. It is the only machine I have loved more than this one was the 10-inch PowerBook back in the day. I thought it was the best form factor, the best size. Everything was perfect about that. This is better than that, and it is one that is not. I think terribly easy to recycle because everything's glued in. It uses non-standard screws. It's hard to take apart. And the new MacBook Pro with the Retina display, again, everything's glued in. Everything's non-standard, totally custom design, and it all to drive toward this new sexy, highly portable form factor. And then Apple pulls and says, we're not going to do this anymore. So, that wasn't what I didn't bring that story up to talk about Apple. I brought that story up to talk about the value of these sorts of certifications, which I think is kind of a more important kind of marketing conversation. What is, what's the value of having that stamp on the box? And I just asked myself, have I ever made a buying decision based on one of those stamps? And the answer is no, I never have. And I don't know, I don't have scientific data that supports that I'm, not the only person who has never really made a buying decision on those stamps. But I did reach out to a dear friend who has been charged with these sorts of things in Apple retail. And that conversation was, is this a buying decision, in the retail arm, when people come to the stores, is this a conversation that is had with salespeople? And the response was no, absolutely not. Nobody talks about it.
I mean, let's see. So I guess there's a level to which this standard applies, but leading up to it, I mean, Apple has made some major improvements over the years that are environmentally friendly, like glass screens and metal, casings and things that aren't as polluting as computers once were. Is that's still true, and I think still matters. Yes.
Well, and that's the point, because there's this sort of hue and cry that Apple is pulling out of EPEAT, and no, their things are not recyclable, which I don't think is true. And so I've been thinking through this. I wrote this post on my blog that sort of covers kind of my thinking here, and from 2 points. First of all, that Apple pulled out of EPEAT does not necessarily say that they're going to be putting all these aluminum shells in a wood chipper and pouring the dust into our water supply. What it means is, I think, that Apple is the company that makes their products, and so the Apple recycling program is the program that best knows how to recycle the products that they make, right? That they built this 11-inch MacBook
so
Air.
They can disassemble.
They're going to be the ones who have the tools and the expertise to disassemble it. That's my kind of operating philosophy. There is nothing in this news that says that they're going to do away now with their own recycling program. From all I can tell, it's just getting bigger. Now, but that's that's it. The hue and cry is all about, oh my gosh, what is the value of this certification? Is there a value for this stamp on the box? And that goes not just for EPEAT, but for the Better Business Bureau stamp on websites, for anything that assures some level of standardization or quality. Does that stamp have relevance? That's my bigger question.
Well, and on a retail level, how hard is it to train your staff to say, go ahead and continue to sell this as environmentally friendly, just don't, maybe a month ago it was because we have the certification, and today it's because I'm telling you so. Yeah,
exactly. Because I just don't think once you've made the decision that you're going to buy an Apple product, you're going to buy an Apple product. Does the same thing hold true for Better Business Bureau logo on a website? For a Chamber of Commerce logo on a website? What is that? Is that telling your local customer something of value?
And I feel kind of bad, by the way, for the Better Business Bureau. Because, not really, but in the same way I feel bad for the Yellow Pages. Not really. But I think the Better Business Bureau at one time had more clout, but today I'd just as soon read Yelp reviews or Google reviews than know if there are complaints to the Better Business Bureau, which is really kind of they make money. They want donations from all the businesses that they.
But is there relevance in the customer facing?
That's
the question.
My poorly stated point is that I don't know. I think at one point, if I never knew what it meant, I guess. If somebody puts the BBB sticker on their door, whatever. It still means I have to look it up and I have to find out. So, I think these things are fluctuating. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
I mean, I think our ability to have access to information about products and certifications and environmental friendliness and customer satisfaction, we have so much more access to that information now that we don't necessarily need these stamps of approval, and I think that if we were going to have a broader discussion about this, it would get would get boring if we did. But things like organic, I was reading about how, I don't know what organic stamp it is, but it's the organic standards have become so corporate today. The involvement and the defining of what is and what is not organic, and they've sort of coalesced around a particular stamp, I guess, that it's just sort of completely lost the value that it originally had.
Right. Well, you know what? I'm going to put a fork in it.
Yeah,
I'm going to put it forward because you're right. I mean, that's why
we're about to go down boring zone if we keep going on that one.
You know, I brought it up because it seemed like there was. I don't know that there's any sort of fire there. I just think that you know, I was going to talk about it if there was if we didn't have something else to say. It turns out we
Which
did.
we did, and I wouldn't mind picking up on that one again next week, man. Building your own brand. I just think it is. I really am into this topic right now. In fact, I'm going to say, because you know we're doing the sign off here, we're putting a fork in it, and you're going to ask me how can people get a hold of me.
Yeah,
I'm going to say
you're going to say
strike10.co. As I'm just right now in the process of developing the content for that, but it exists. You can get there.
I'm checking it right now. I find it interesting that you went to the
.co.
.co.
Judgments. Don't do that. It's rough.
Is this you're on Squarespace?
Indeed.
So that's another one I deeply want to talk about is Squarespace V6.
Oh.
I deeply want to talk about it. I'm sort of bummed that we have gone so far over already. We need to. Can we talk about this next week, please?
You know what I'm gonna do?
Make a note.
You'll probably do this too, but I'm gonna on my calendar. I'm gonna go in and edit next week's show reminder, I'm gonna put Squarespace V6 on there so that we are sure to talk about it. I'm also gonna put
building your brand
on there.
All right, so we'll figure out what part 2 is gonna be.
Please.
All right.
Yeah.
Good.
There we go. Okay. Cool, man.
Hey. Bye. I can't find the button. I can't stop the show. All right, I'm stopping it now.